Hello, in this video we're going to take a look at the shading, lighting, and reflection features available in Blender. So just click General, and in order to showcase those things, the cube is not a great example. So press the X key, which brings up the delete. We can delete that, and then we can Shift A, Mesh, and UV Sphere, which will be a great example for us to showcase the lighting and reflection. And so what we'll do is shade is smooth like we have seen previously, and that way instead of it showing off the each triangles, it's a nice smooth UV sphere for us to work with. And now you can see that has this light here, but it just looks the same all around. You don't really like see like light hitting one side and the other being dark, because of the render that we're in. Um, Blender has these four renderers up here. Yeah, or like the shading or different kinds of shading that it shows. Like this one just fully like this, and then this one is just solid. This one kind of shows that, and finally this one is what your final renders will look like, taking into account the lighting. And as you can see, because of this light over here reflecting on this, you could see the light on here, and then this part is dark. And now, in order to change the world lighting, we can go to click on the object, go over to this icon right here, world, and in here we can adjust the strength of it. So now it's like all washed out, and this is like too dark. So usually it's at 1, which is like, normal to work with. And this we can choose like the color, and we use generally the HSV in this class because Dr. Rix used HSV in his other classes as well. Um, and this we can use to like, now it's all washed out again, and we can choose like a different color, and now you can see like that kind of what it reflects. Has that bluish, world lighting. So we can put it back to here, turn this back down, like over here, like it was. So that you can mess around with. Um, and then now when we go down to here, which is the material, now we can add a material on this um, object. Go to new, and then adds, and generally use like the principal BSDF surface on it. Um, and there's other options that you can choose here, like glossy BSDF and all that. We'll try out diffuse BSDF. So these are different services you can mess around with. And then you can change the roughness value here to like probably don't notice it because of that surface. So that's something you need to, like I mentioned, you need to mess around because in this you cannot see it clearly. So that's why we're gonna do glossy BSDF, which I talked about. So, and now we change the roughness value, and you could see now the reflection's more like the specular is what it's called, and it's more like obvious. You could see when you change like the roughness. It's like that, and then now like make it fully, and then it's like a small specular reflection. And that we're able to see because we're in this this particular rendering shading, and this is what your final renders will usually be in, and this is like more intensive because it uses the graphics card. And then you can do Shift A, empty, and sphere. See, this kind of like encompasses that. Then we can press S to scale it, to make it smaller, not the outside, but this empty that we added. Oh, no, the empty. Let's select the empty, or you can select it from the hierarchy there. Scale it to be slightly smaller, and then grab it and to move it around. Guess we scaled it to be too small, so let's just scale it only a little bit, and then hopefully we can move it around. I'm just trying to use this to show you guys the specular that we have. But yeah, let's just showcase that. Now, as you can see up here, we have all these um, layout, and since, like I mentioned, we're going to focus on shading, we're going to go to the shading tab, and it usually has like this uh, generically set up like background things surrounding, but we're going to focus on going back to this like we have been, and then down here is like coding. So we're going to use these. If we click on this, it's going to have these like drop boxes, kind of like how in code.org, you like connect the code pieces instead of coding, and this is doing the same, like where you're still coding, but you're like connecting those blocks. So, and it's kind of like what we looked at, like the glossy BSDF for the surface and the output, and these are called like points. You can like this points, you can like remove it and then attach it like that. So first, you can see, same thing like that. We can mess around with the roughness. See the specular, and then press X to delete, and then like how we did, you Shift A when we're in the normal window. We can do the same in shading, and then generally I think it's better to just use the search bar unless you're pretty familiar with each of those to go be able to find what you need. But we're going to use RGB, put it over here, um, and then connect this point. And now we're back to where we had like no, like, the specular, and it's just the plane, no reflection. As you can see, we can do like blue color, and that just shades the whole thing. So that just looks basic, like in the old style uh, video games and whatnot. So, and then we can just remove this because now what we want, because we want to be able to show the specular, and for that we need to choose like the surface. So we're gonna go Shift A, search and diffuse BSDF. Put it right in the middle, and now we can pass this color onto here, and instead of passing it onto here, you want to use the add shader so we can actually bring the diffuse BSDF down here and be like the intermediator that you would want to use um, the add shader, and you'll see why in a second here. So we bring the add shader and then bring the point from here to this, bring the surface diffuse BSDF to this, and then we can connect this, and as you can see now we have, all right, there we go. Now you can see we have our blue, RGB, so our material, and then now we also have the specular from diffuse BSDF, and we can adjust the roughness. But yes, I think this one is a fixed roughness. That might be because of, yeah, no, that's because of that, yeah. Alright, so, and yeah, this is pretty basic of how you can code the shading here. And usually when you watch your tutorials, it'll be a lot more complex than this. But these are like the basic building blocks that you can go off of to code it on your own. Be able to choose the color and surface of your objects. Now you want to get in order to get the glossy, you go get the glossy surface. Let's put it over here. Then let's remove this from this. Put this over here. And then you can see, look at that, we got that, our glossy with the specular like we had beforehand. So we can connect this to this. Then you can shift A, and this is how you use like the add shader is very important to be able to um, let me show you. Right. Like, so we're combining like two different um, like we're using the diffuse BSDF as well as the glossy BSDF, and we're getting the RGB from this code, and the add shader is what allows us to do that, be able to combine these um, correctly. So that's that's a very important piece of code. Let's mess around with the roughness and look at that now that like we were able to not do that, but that's because that was a diffuse BSDF and that doesn't, whereas the glossy BSDF does, and now we can see the change in the specular. So we're able to do that because now we're able to add two different shaders, and the add shader helps us add multiple shader options. So yeah, that's just a basic overview of the shading menu in Blender. So now we can go back here and look at that. So it still shows that, but we're gonna delete this for now because so we can look at a few other things to wrap up. Go back to Shift A, mesh, bring back the UV sphere, and a trick that Dr. Riggs showcased is you want to go to Edit, Preferences, Key Map, and change the spacebar action to search. So generally it's in play because we will have, for animations, you'll have the timeline down here and you click space and then it'll play the animation, but we're not there yet. And just for modeling, it's more efficient in order to get work done. So you can choose the tools. You just want to press space and then I can quickly choose what I need. So like let's just say shade smooth, right? That's something we like to use. So there you go. Makes it a lot quicker. You can just press space with your thumb and then quickly choose whatever you want to apply. And now let's look at some of the, say, light options. And as you can see, when you're in this, no, you can't. But in order to properly see it, we'll go back to this view. And as you can see, let's mess around with this particular lighting. Select it, light, press G key to grab, and then look at that. Depending on where we move around, then it's, it's changing the where it's showcasing the light and the other part being dark. And something that we could do with this is change the watts. So we could go over here and we could increase it. And that's a very inefficient way of doing this. So you could drag, that's quick, or you can input. Let's do like 2000, or I put 200, and as you can see, like it went down. Yeah, that's a lot more bright. See, so it's in watts. I think you could even change the color and then the light. Yeah, there you go. The light is in that color. It's not a material. Look at that. We turn it off. So it's not a material. It's a light. It's this blue light that is reflecting. So you got to keep that in mind. So now let's delete this light actually because we want to look at other options. So let's go to Shift A. So now there's no light. And as you can see, if we go back to this, look at that. Then you go back to this view, no light. So just like that. So now we go to Shift A, light option. Let's go to the sunlight. So sunlight, let's grab and move it up. As you can see, we'll grab it, move it around, nothing. And we are in this view, but as you can see, nothing, no change like we did with the point light. When we move it around, it's like you would see the change, but you don't see it with this. So in order for that, you have to rotate it. So press the R key. Then you need to like rotate. Look at that. Now you see it. Right? Now we'll increase the strength. There you go. So now remember that when you use the sunlight, you have to rotate this and then just like how the sun is, like you won't get a sunburn under your nose. And then even it'll be like in a specific part of your cheeks and then it'll be on your nose. That's because the sunlight can get under your nose and whatnot. So you have to like point it. So it's more specific, unlike the other one. And so this should give you options when you make your model and add lighting to it and how specific you want to get with that. I think again you can add, look at that. If you want like sunlight yellow, there you go. So that's sunlight. So let's delete that. And let's look at the next light option, which is spotlight. So for spotlight, again, we need to move it. So we can move it up And as you can see right there. So, so we want to have it inside this little cone because it's like specific and concentrated. So we have it in the cone, but you would see there's no lighting because we need to adjust this, the wattage, because currently it's not powerful. It's to like 500 watts. Alright, we can see something, maybe like 2000 watts. There we go, now it's more obvious. So light's coming down from there and it's like very specific, and again you can mess around with this if you need. But generally I think with my experience I just kept it white and then I had to adjust the wattage and where I placed it to my object and the reflection it created, the lighting it created. So alright, so that's spotlight. So you need to, the object needs to be in there. Or I guess let's move it around. Yes, but then it needs to be like somewhat close to the spot, as you can see. Like I think the light's coming up from here. So even though it might not have to be directly in there, but it needs to be in its vicinity. So let's delete that, unless your wattage is like super high. Shift A, let's go Shift A again. The last light option is area light. So let's grab, move it. Look at that. It's kind of like a lamp-ish light. I guess if that helps make sense. Um, so, so you could see it's like right under it, and we could scale it to make it even bigger. Look at that. And as you can see right here, there's like weird changes. That's because of the sampling it takes, and we could have it take more samples, but it's going to become that much more intensive, and that's something Dr. Weeks will cover in the future. Look at that. And now it's more obvious, like where you could see like this weird like rendering thing. So yeah, that has to do with the sampling, and the more samples you take, the smoother that'll get. And yes, spotlight is kind of, or the area light is kind of similar, but let's move it around here. There you go. It's definitely a lot more. Ooh, it's zoomed in too much. There you go. So that's the area light. And now we'll look at some of the, let's see, geometry, I guess. So we'll do space, flat. We want to shade flat or object, shade auto smooth. No, is that? Wow, alright, let's just do a new UV sphere. I think I messed it up. Oh, I didn't select it. There we go. Ah, that might be why. Hold up. There we go. That's why, because I didn't select it, so don't make silly mistakes like me. Alright. So now let's see like the normals. Like how Blender calculates it. So in order for that to turn on normals, we click on I think I need to go to edit mode. Press tab to go to edit mode. You can see like the triangles that make it up. And yes, here you can turn on the normals. There you go. And that's how you can see like how Blender calculates it. Like the vertices and like around how like the direction it's pointing to each face, and how it calculates it when it's shade flat. Now let's like shade smooth and how that changes. I think let's go tab. Let's shade it smooth real quick, shall we? Shade smooth, and now we'll go back to edit mode. It's taking a second. Edit mode. I think my computer might be a little too So, and this is how I calculate when it's like shading it, um, smooth versus flat. And it's like you can like the jagged edges, and I think using showcasing with the cylinder would be more obvious. So let's do that. Delete this. Shift A, mesh, cylinder, and then let's shade this smooth. And you can see like the edges. Go here. There you go. That's the normals for the cylinder. Shaded smooth. So that's it for this video, and I hope it kind of exposed you to the shading features, uh, the lighting options that you have available that you can tinker around with for your project, as well as how Blender like calculates the triangles and when you shade smooth and the edges.